not this, then better. That's going to be the mantra this year.
It's okay if you're not in your highest self and magnetic self all the time. Don't worry, it will come back. Keep coming back to self as much as you can and give yourself grace.
So honor wherever you're at in your process.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I don't know about you, but if you guys have been feeling the tests, the shifts into the beginning of this year, if you feel like you're in that magic dark, you're close, you've passed some tests, but you're kind of waiting for that next level, or maybe shit's just hitting the fan and you're like, I can't even come up for air. You are so not alone. So many of us are going through this. So many people in our community are going through this. And it's really this collective, but also internal experience of pulling back the layers to really connect with our authentic selves. There is a reason that we kicked off this year's challenge as the Authenticity Challenge, because we knew how vital reconnecting with your authentic self was going to be in 2025. And we wanted to help support the community the best way we know how. So we are launching a brand new video series with Lacy, where she is going to be channeling direct from the universe anything that is coming through for our collective community of what to know, how to navigate, what to do about everything that's coming up for this year. And we're going to drop a couple of little tools in there with a brand new DI. It's called Channeling with Lacy, an energetic update for manifesting. Lacy hasn't done this sort of channeling since she's had one-on-one clients. So this is a real treat. And we've honestly been behind the scenes begging Lacy to do this for a while. It does take so much out of her to do it, but we just felt like there's so much going on right now. We need an anchor. We need a path forward. So this will be launching exclusively in the Pathway. If you're a member, you will get access for free. If you haven't joined the Pathway yet, be sure to join. Check us out, tobemagnetic.com. Use our promo code EXPANDED, get 20% off your first month. Now's the time to join, guys, and we will walk you through this entire year. There's going to be so many shifts, but I'm telling you, if we can come together as a community, have that moment of grounding, have one clear action step, path forward, I think we're going to come out even more magnetic and authentic and manifesting the things that are so aligned with our soul. The cool thing about what's happening right now in the energetics of 2025 is that, yes, things are moving faster in terms of they're getting thrown at you faster, the tests, the opportunities, the challenges, and that means you have the potential to manifest significantly faster. So it's going to be a journey. We are going to walk you through it hand in hand. Check it out. It launches next Wednesday, February 5th in the Pathway membership. Come join. It's going to be a good time. On today's episode, we have Lacy and Janelle, and we are giving you our protocol of what to do when you are feeling dysregulated, when you are thrown off course, when you are questioning, why is the universe throwing this at me? Why do I feel off? Why do things not feel good and in alignment? We're going to walk you through exactly what to do to support yourself through that journey. This is going to happen time and time and time again. Every time we shed an old layer, we unravel another onion layer of ourselves. We have to shed, we have to process it. We have to sit with the muck. We have to kind of understand what's going on. We have to re-regulate. We have to reconnect to ourselves, recenter. Huge, huge, huge theme for 2025 is recentering into ourselves. And then we can get the clarity, and then we can get the creativity, and then we can problem solve, and then we can go from there. But so many times when we're in the midst of everything going on, we get swept up into it, and then we reach for numbing things, and then we use that coping mechanism that really isn't working for us anymore, or we try to control and double down on what we think worked. And really the lesson in this year and so much of what we're going to talk about in this episode is how can you take your power back in these situations by giving yourself, by self-soothing, by attuning to what those things are that you really need. I mean, we've talked about self-soothing so much on this podcast and regulating so much on this podcast, but I think this is really the time to put your practice where your mouth is, so to speak. I don't know if that's a saying, but we're going to roll with it and really figure out, okay, if that practice worked for me before, does it work for me now? Do I need to adapt it? Do I need something different? I know for me, this week in particular, showers have been my everything. Just having running water, just decompress, like cleansing my aura, listening to binaural beats, dropping everything off so I can get that spark of energy, that life force to reconnect back into me and then make decisions from that place. It's going to be so game changer. This is an episode you guys are going to want to come back to whenever you are feeling in that state, in that like, oh, what do I do with this feeling? This is your episode to kick off with. So enjoy.
All right, on to the episode.
We want to give you guys the support during those challenging moments, those times when you're feeling tested, when you feel rock bottom, when you feel destabilized. Maybe you just feel a bit of existential dread, or you're not sure what's going to happen next, or you're at a loss in your manifestation practice. Whatever it is, this is going to become your protocol to come back to again and again and again, to not only regulate and really deeply understand what that means to ground, to find pockets of safety, but from that place, understand how to move forward from a place of authenticity. So welcome, Janelle and Lacy. So Lacy, how are you experiencing this right now, navigating it on your own too, just as like an example for people listening of how they can start to piece together what they might be navigating? And then Janelle, how do we move through this?
So one thing that I think is so pertinent to begin with, Jessica and the team have had the concept of us releasing me channeling again and giving full-blown updates and energetics for people to hear directly to them as if a session was being had. And we are going to be releasing that next Wednesday. And I did the channeling this last week, and it was a channeling of the entire of 2025 that is really important for manifestation. And I think something that is super important to note in this episode is that this is going to be the year of stripping, and to condense that, it's actually a really beautiful thing, but it is going to be very much like the rug getting pulled out from under any walk of life you are, no matter where you're located, what's going on. And because the universe's only intention is to get you back into your whole, worthy, authentic self, that stripping is going to be stripping anywhere that you aren't being authentic. And maybe you've been having an idea of where that authenticity isn't in full integrity. Regardless, the universe is going to push you right along and help you, and to clear that space so that it can fill it with your manifestation. So it's a very, very long channeling, an hour of this year, what to look forward to, how to navigate it, straight from the universe. All that to say, the universe never holds me as an exception, right? Like the way I came through with this work is because the universe rock bottoms me in every scenario so that I can actually learn new teachings on it, channel new teachings, care enough to put out new teachings and not just be in bliss all the time. So I'm no exception. And my stripping began, as I've spoken about on the podcast, pre-holidays, right? It just bam, bam, bam. And so, of course, the fires were no exception for me. So at this moment, we're pretty displaced. Our house made it, which is extremely fortunate. Many didn't. Many have nothing to come back to. However, there's a really big aftermath to that, a crazy cleanup, what's actually safe in the environment, the air, the water. PCH is now closed, meaning my daughter's school, which was 30 minutes to get to, sometimes 20, would now be a 3-hour commute. So we're having to navigate so much, like Do we not go back right away? Do we live closer to Los Angeles but further? And we have the privilege to even have that conversation, right? But I am so deeply in it in the stripping process. And so what I was letting Janelle know is, what the fuck do you do when you are literally losing it? And obviously I have so many resources and tools around this. I've been doing this for 10 years, but the universe is rocking me. It's like, it's throwing it all on. And I know it's just the beginning, because after channeling, I know it's just the beginning for everybody. So Janelle is going to really walk us through some somatic experiencing concepts so that this can be the prescription that people come back to over and over and over again. Your pocket episode, like we should call it Pockets of Safety, because everyone listening will be revisiting this in 2025. You will learn more about that on Wednesday in the pathway of the channeling from the universe for 2025.
So Janelle, how do we find these pockets of safety?
I know. Yes. Okay. So in somatic experiencing, when we're in high trauma crisis, there's a couple questions that are asked. One, when did you know you were not safe? And when did you know you were safe again? So right now, sometimes there's like an initial safety that people might feel, but they're not in full safety yet. They don't know if insurance will come through. There's still different ways that they are still in it. And so when you're actively in kind of a crisis space, somatic experiencing calls it how to find pockets of safety. And it's two different ways. There's internally finding pockets of safety, and then also how do we create our own external ways to have pockets of safety that then transfer also internally. So we have in our safety eye, we have an exercise called paired opposites. But basically, when someone's in crisis, if they go into their body, they might have a ton of activation in their chest and their stomach and their head, their shoulders, everywhere. And it feels radically uncomfortable to get in their body. And so where we can kind of start is where you want to look, if you can, to go, okay, where is one space? Where is it a little bit even neutral? It might not even be positive. It might just be neutral. So if you go in your body, you're like, okay, my foot feels neutral. My hand feels neutral. Where do you have a little bit of safety that you can really like hyper focus on and kind of soothe there? But there's an exercise to kind of somatically help. It's almost like your safe part of your body is like, there's this part that's an activation. Like let's say your chest is really activated and your foot is calm. There's this exercise that we have in the safety eye that helps basically your body co-regulate. Your foot's like, hey, I'm super calm over here, and your chest is like on fire. It's a way to kind of help soothe and bring back balance in the body. But that's something to kind of start with, like where is one place that you can feel a little bit neutral and focus in on that to help kind of bring some activation down.
I think too, for that exercise, like if you guys do our safety eye, that's one of the points in there. And I love what you're saying too, Janelle, of figuring out how can you, bring the activation down, but also lean into those spaces and places you can feel safe. Lacy, you were talking about some things, outside of just somatic exercises that you're leaning on right now to feel safe. What could that look like for someone else who's not necessarily ready to go into a somatic experiencing exercise yet? What are some things you're leaning on?
What I was hearing from Janelle of what actually works in regulating us in this theory of pockets of safety is, what are your pockets of safety you've had prior to what you're going through that's dysregulating right now? So for me, a really good example of that is meditation, things like that. Deep imaginings will, because I've been so primed, my nervous system and my brain is so primed in allowing them to ground me. And that's what pockets really are. Basically, for me, recognizing my pockets of safety look like growing up in two extremely messy, chaotic households where I was moved around from house to house to house, whether I'm in a home that's mine or not. Right now, we're in a teeny little one bedroom, sharing it together to be close to LA. And for me, it's organizing and tidying instantly ground me into like, okay, I'm in control. This isn't chaos. I have a sense of control. So what I was hearing from Janelle when we were first talking about this are, what are those rituals prior to this that actually make you feel in control and grounded, rather than what we've projected through wellness will ground me. It has to actually be the things that work for you. Other examples of that, because I had a lot of health issues, are tapping into the things that instantly make me feel like I'm in control of my health, right? Like warm lemon water in the morning. Beans have healed me. We have episodes on that with Unique, but I'll let you talk more, Janelle, because I think other pieces of like beauty, design, that for me, they're huge. Aesthetics, everything to me. It's part of my authentic code. Design's number 2 of my pillars. And so for me, I had to like, accessories and going out to a dinner makes me feel in control and that I have some sense of normalcy and safety in my life. What are other versions of that for you all, so that everybody can actually tap into what their pockets of safety really look like?
Yeah, so it's basically finding pockets. So there's like obviously the internal that I just talked about, but how do we create our own pockets of safety? So if somebody has their own ritual of Palo Santo and pulling a card, and that's really grounding to them, or if somebody is more body movement oriented, yoga is just what grounds them. A lot of creatives, whatever your modality is, whether it's writing, whether it's design, whether it's creativity, is amazing because it can help really, it gets you in a different part of your brain and it helps to regulate really well. Ritual in the morning, like Lacy was talking about, whatever kind of helps, it's your little thing that's special that you connect to. Even if you're in a lot of chaos, you're like, oh, I feel relief and I feel a little bit settled by doing this thing, is so huge, because when you create that, whatever that thing is for you, your body is able to settle afterwards. So you find that safety and it settles. And then there's this drop afterwards of emotional release, that you have a little bit bigger container to hold everything that's happening.
One thing that keeps coming to mind as you're saying this is like, what are the ways that we can feel into that safety through our authentic code? I'm like running through my authentic code in my head. I'm like, yes, there are paths to feeling safe within each of them. I'm even thinking like one of my code words is innovation. When I start thinking about how can the change be for the future and how can we like innovate on this, it taps into creativity, and that actually helps really ground me. Or even thinking of wonder and awe is another aspect of my authentic code. Getting in nature, seeing like the very simple, beautiful things around me. One thing for me so much is this sensory in my mind's eye, and just putting on music or binaural beats and like creating a world. That's why I love the Clear Your Aura DI, the Energetics Boundaries DI, the Safe DI to create your safe space. I love world building in my mind that is so soothing. So think about your authentic code. And yes, we can do those internal senses of safety and pockets of safety, but even externally, even though they're in your mind's eye, through your authentic code, what actions can you take that are going to help soothe you in this time? Janelle, what are some other somatic experiencing practices to process some of the anger or fear or tantrums, giving permission for that inner child to have a healthy tantrum at this moment?
Yeah, I've got a couple that really work. And so the first one that I love, if you're in like a lot of activation in your body, you're just feeling deeply dysregulated, either anxious or angry, to kind of help move that energy out, one way you can do is find a wall. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring up whatever's coming up, and you're going to tap into that anger, that anxiety, all that activation. And then you're going to press really hard into a wall. Like you're pressing over the trauma, you're pressing over whatever it is that you're mad at, the whole situation. You're going to press as hard as you can. And then you're going to stop. And you're going to breathe, and you're going to check in with your body, and you're going to say, is there more? And your body will tell you if there's more. And then again, you're going to have the activation come up, and you're going to press as hard as you can, push over the whole situation, push over the whole trauma, all the pain, you're pushing over everything. And then you're going to stop, you're going to check in with your body and ask your body, is there more? And then you're going to go again, and you're going to do that till your body says, I'm done. and you'll feel literally just like you'll feel the drop. You'll feel it just all kind of wash away. And then typically underneath that, you'll grieve. You might have then go into a wave of sadness, which is great because that's your nervous system settling. You'll want to cry if that's naturally what comes up. Sometimes it won't, but if that does, you can feel that, and you let the cortisol just wash away, and you'll feel your body will loosen, like it'll stiffen, because in crisis we just tense. And so we have to feel it in order to then soften and have a little bit more capacity.
In the conflict DI, we have this exercise. So if you guys want to walk it through audibly too, you can replay this from the podcast, but also in that conflict DI. It's a really good spot to practice it.
Yeah. So the other one, you guys are all familiar with the VU, right? That's in several of our DIs. And the VU is the one where we take a deep breath and we go, VU, and you can literally hear the vibration in my throat. That sound, that vibration is actually toning our vagus nerve. And when we tone our vagus nerves, it's just an instant settling that happens. It's amazing. And you can absolutely VU, do the VU whenever that comes to you. That's a really quick way to kind of bring some activation down. The other one is great when you're angry, when you're in your fight response, you feel beaten up by life or a person, I'm going to call it the RAR. And you guys, I'm going to look ridiculous right now, but we're going to do it. So basically what it is, so when we're angry, our whole jaw will tension, and it's almost like somatically our body goes, who do you want to bite, right? But it gets really tight in here. So one way to kind of move through that anger and lessen the, honestly, energetic charge and physiological charge is to RAR. And what it looks like, you really want to pay attention to kind of the joint muscles when you RAR. So what it's like is and if you notice, there's still that same vibration that it's in the VU. I did a mild RAR, but I want you to go for it like you're a lion. And it's amazing, the release. After the RAR, it really discharges some of the anger. It's so healing. Last year, there was a lot of stripping for me last year. I had a lot of anger charge. I went through another mold exposure, and I felt like I lost my brain. I felt like I lost my ability to articulate. And so it was really vulnerable. Lost my health again. I lost my office. So there was a lot of activation, but it sounds so silly, but I would literally be driving and it would come and I would just be driving and I would be roaring, and it helped. It sounds so silly, but it really helps. And we were talking earlier, but if we're just spiritual people that intellectualize, we can only go so far with this work. And so even though these sound silly, the exercises I'm giving you or the ones that are in the DIs, it changes us physically. And body, soul, mind, it's all interconnected. So when we release, literally our nervous system drops and settles, and different parts of our brain can come back online where we can hold crisis and these hard things with a lot more ease rather than just kind of forcing ourselves to think positive or intellectualize it.
One thought I had too about the roar is how you see, your animals do it. I see Theo do it at the coyotes out the window. He'll be roar, letting them know, back off. I don't like when you're here. And then he'll start huffing and puffing, and be he hates when they're around. But it's so interesting. Lacy, you were mentioning when we were talking about this earlier, how primal these things are and how rooted into really older ways of life. It's reawakening to help soothe us.
Well, yeah, I was noting that it is so interesting. A lot of these somatic experiencing exercises that you've shared with us, Janelle, which again, if you do our deep imaginings and the pathway, we have a lot of them in there. Janelle has been very, very specifically helping us weave them in, because the only way to process trauma is when you're regulated. You have to be in a regulated state. So a lot of these are in the DIs. So when you're doing them, don't just skip over them. They're there to regulate you. But I was really noting that it is interesting how primal the connection is, because I think a lot of the stripping that's going to be happening in this year, and this I didn't mention in the channeling from what I can remember when I channel, it'll be interesting to watch in the pathway because my eyes are closed and I'm just receiving messages, but I don't think this one came through because it's seeming new. A lot of the stripping I think that's going to be happening for people this year, we're being stripped authentically, right? Where we're not in true integrity of our authenticity, whether we've been wanting to step away from something or pivot or move or shift versus where we are, whether we've been wanting to or unaware of it, it's happening. And it's really interesting that I think a lot of the stripping is going to strip away a lot of that distance we have between how primal we are versus where we are living now. Like some of us don't even have like cellular memory of roaring. That's something we do in birth. That's something that we do when we're in pain. These are things that animals like Theo and other animals just innately have not lost because even though they're domesticated, they're still living close to nature and the earth. We are not at all. And so that gap between is going to be really interesting to watch this year and next as we continue to, move deeper into the Aquarian age. I think this is going to be really beautiful. And the big message is, if not this, then better. Like that's going to be the mantra this year, right? If not this, then better, because the universe is going to be clearing the space of where we aren't in our authenticity, very different to each of us individually, because we're all such individual, perfect beings that are here to manifest such perfect, incredible things that are authentic to us. But what I was going to say is I do think we're going to move deeper into technology, but I think that there's going to be a very big interest in shortening this gap that we have of the connection to primal living and earth and nature. So it's fascinating that we're talking about that the real remedies to when we're so in fight or flight and so dysregulated, and literally it feels like every rug's getting pulled out from under us, that the key to getting back to that is primal, right? It's these primal sounds. It's the primal things that make us feel safe. Yeah, I just find that to all be really exciting and accessible. It's going to be pretty vital, in my opinion.
I've got one more that I really love. And it's especially when we're feeling powerless and helpless. So you'll need a buddy. Ask your partner if they're willing to do it, or a friend. But what you want to do is you're going to almost push hands against each other. So this one, let's say you're going to stabilize by pushing one of your foot back. Okay. And let's say I'm not in my power. I'm feeling so beat up. So this one, you're the receiver. So what I'm going to do is press. And you're going to kind of take it, right? You're going to praise it. And I'm going to press. And then I'm going to stop and check in my body. And there's a little bit more power that comes back online. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to press. And I feel a little bit more of my autonomy. I feel a little bit more of my power. You want to check in after every time you do it, but it's amazing way to kind of go, okay, I have my power. It's not even like your conscious, it's like, okay, whatever situation I'm in that I'm being beat up, I'm still accessing my power, even though this is happening. So it's yes. And actually, for those with teenagers that have a loss of autonomy issue, great for them too. So, pro tip.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to highlight to people too, that when you were in that fight or flight, when you were in that triggered state, going to some of these practices will not feel like your norm.
Look at that gentle giant.
Lacy's familiar is ready to come into the screen and cuddle right now. He's needing some support and regulation. But leaning on this stuff may not feel like the norm. My instinct is probably some of my authentic code, things that I can lean on that make me feel good. And there's probably some numbing behaviors that are not super helpful that are instinctual at this moment in time. And so as you're navigating the turbulence of everything, how can you, going through our test protocol, the pause, the reset, the reframe, review. When you're in that pause, just that half second of pause, becoming aware of, oh, I am feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling an intense amount of emotions or things coming at me. How can I choose a way that feels good to reset my nervous system, to ground, to find my center that isn't going to be numbing out or scrolling or turning to food or tuning into this? Like, what is going to be the thing that's actually going to nourish me through it? And there'll be trial and error. And going and doing a voo or a growl or a push might not feel natural, but the more you do it, the more you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I do that thing, I actually feel so good after. And then it will become part of the norm. So just like any habit, you want to just integrate it slowly as you remember, and just it'll become habitual. And I notice now it's so habitual for me to go into a DI. I know the nervous system reset playlist is there. I know I can choose what I need. But that wasn't always the case. It took time of being in states of fight or flight and knowing I have this tool to go to.
Yeah.
You've heard us talk about our Pathway membership, but what actually is it? It is an all-access membership where you can get every single workshop that we've ever created, all of our deep imaginings, which are our reprogramming audios, to help you manifest. You can access it on the desktop or in the TBM app on your phone directly. We, of course, have our foundational workshops, such as our How to Manifest workshop, which takes you step by step through this neural manifestation process to actually unblock, expand, and take aligned action to connect with your manifestations. Our How to Be Magnetic workshop, our Inner Child and Shadow workshops. And then, of course, we have a workshop if you are in a rut, if you're in a rock bottom, if you're in an up level, perhaps you need to set boundaries. Maybe you want to focus specifically on the block of money or love. It is all in there. And then twice a year as a community, we gather for our challenges. Our challenges are one of the most effective parts of the process because you get accountability. It is really a handheld experience in how to work through whatever the theme of that year's challenge is. And now to my absolute favorite part of our membership, which I think in and of itself would be worth the entire weight of the membership if we just had this alone, our Deep Imagining library. This library encompasses over 60 neural reprogramming audio tracks. They're self-hypnosis tracks that will really support you in any step of this journey. If you're needing calming, nervous system regulation, unblocking with a specific test or trigger, going through a difficult time, processing a big emotion, or maybe you just want reinforcing, how to reinforce those neural pathways of confidence, abundance, self-worth, deservingness, and connection with your dream life. And not only that, if you go to the app, we just launched Deep Imagining playlists where we're grouping different themes of DIs together. So no matter what you're going through, you have something for you. And we're constantly dropping new playlists as well as brand new Deep Imaginings. And if you need more support in your process, you can go to our brand new video series, Channelings with Lacy, where she touches on the exact energetics that are going on right now in manifestation and how it may apply to your life. So obviously, I am a huge fan of this membership. The peace of mind I get from being able to have all the tools I need at my disposal, no matter where I'm at with my life, if shit's hitting the fan, if I'm feeling dysregulated, if I'm needing to come back to my center, if I'm needing to brainstorm or daydream or connect with what my vision for my future is, every single tool is in there to support me. And don't just take my word for it. We have thousands of testimonials of people who have had incredible success stories with these tools. So take the guesswork out of your manifestation process and get real tools that are going to give you real results. For podcast listeners only, you can use code EXPANDED, all caps EXPANDED, for 20% off your first month of the pathway. Join now and have your best year yet. Okay, the last point I want to make on this and get your guys' thoughts on is when you feel regulated enough, when you found that pocket of safety, how can you open up to the reframe? Like Lacy said, this or something better. Like, if not this, then something better. When can we feel that opening, that crack to allow the creativity, to allow the reframe, to allow that to settle into without bypassing the need to really sit with all of our emotions around it?
You know, when you're in acute crisis, honestly, like just to honor your humanity, the pockets of safety might just be very short, and that's okay. And as you move through it and you find more pockets of safety and your nervous system settles, the more that settles, it will naturally come where there's a little bit more space to hold meaning. And I mean, you'll naturally make meaning of it. And there's a little bit space to kind of hold more. But if you're in the acute space right now, your work is just to find pockets of safety where you can and trust that that will naturally come. And there might be a point where you're like, let me, actually might be really regulating to go back and even different TBM episodes. And you're like, okay, let me listen to the one that process episode where it was a massive rock bottom and listen to her story. And it's so inspiring. That actually can be deeply regulating and healing. So honor wherever you're at in your process.
I think too, with the reframe bit, and curious your guys' thoughts on this or when it comes into your practice, but usually there's like an intentional moment of stillness that I take by myself. Like I'll have a solo moment. The lightning bolt of the ping or the clarity drops in. And I know I have like regulated enough to allow space for that. And it's almost like that can't drop in unless I do the first part first. And even if some pings do come through before I fully regulated, they're still from like a more scarcity mindset, which is where if I can get into that regulation, if I can really sit with everything, then it allows for like the abundance mindset of what's possible to even have space to land. How do you guys see it?
Yeah, it's the same for me. So right now, one of the more stripping, hard parts of navigating all the destabilization that's been happening is my testing is that I'm an avoidant. I'm great on my own. I can restart on my own, go anywhere I want. At my poorest, I could hop in the car and drive somewhere. But when I have two young children that requires so much one-on-one, and then a partner who has differing needs than I do. Like right now, I'd be in Mendocino. What are we even doing here, right? Like I'd be in Mendocino. There's a school there I can put Teddy in, like until PCH opens up, no problem. But then we also have co-care and her needs and my kids' needs. And so for me, that's been one of the bigger lessons here is like having to practice everything we're talking about within my worst chaos, being imprisoned and stuck or stuck in situations. And I'm like the person who thrives on magnetism, right? So for me, I had to really acknowledge the tantrums, like we're talking about. I had to, my inner child, all the stuff from childhood coming up, like being from house to house, stuck out of my control, other people's needs, like having to attune to their needs and enmeshment and not just being able to get into mine and having extremely low levels of alone time or any alone time to self-care and regulate. So that's why I think a lot of the tools we're talking about here are really, really accessible regardless of what circumstances coming up. But just this morning, and we're going on 2 weeks now, right? Just this morning, since the fire broke out, I started to go, oh, I'm feeling my magnetism again. It's coming through. I had to go through, like you're saying, Jessica, the spectrum. And I had very, very small pockets of safety and was like flailing, not able to find my pockets. And even when I was doing deep imaginings, I would get little bits of them, and we were up at the place that, was my place before I had kids, the forest house. I had a lot of pockets of safety there. But once we left there and routine and rhythm that we got into, it was like free falling again. So I have to go through the emotions, the tantrums, all of that before I can really regulate. So it's a lot that comes up before getting into that space of magnetism again, for me.
Didn't you say last night too, you had like an emotional breaking point where you like sat with those emotions too?
Completely. I had a full-blown breakdown, with Max. And poor Max, we're both codependent. So he's like, we can get in the car now and drive to Mendocino. We can leave. We can leave. And I looked at him in front of my kids. It's horrible. And I was like, I'm taking the kids tomorrow and I'm going to Mendocino. Like basically you can't come. If you need to get to work, good luck, enjoy, but we're leaving. And Teddy's like, wait, but Dad's not, as I could see all the trauma that's being created. No. It was a full fucking breakdown. And then, there was a lot of repair after with Teddy and communication and myself. And that had to happen, that release, in order to even create the opening for feeling connected, magnetic, held by God and the universe again today, which I've always known is there, but I haven't been connected to it. I just had to go through all of that to get back.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we talked about the tantrum. And we talked about it earlier, but just to name, like, yes, absolutely go have a tantrum. Whatever is happening, you kind of feel like, oh, I shouldn't, I'm too, I'm a spiritual person. Whatever, I'm evolved. Like, I shouldn't have a tantrum. Like, go have it. It is evolved to have a tantrum. Like, it really is. You're not hurting anyone. You're honoring your primal state. It feels really out of control, but it's a gateway to actually have more emotional control. You can't just stuff it or bypass that part in order to settle. So go for it. Have a tantrum. It's so helpful.
I love that too. And I also love, Lacy, how you brought up the element of kids. Like it's one thing to be going through this, on your own, just navigating. But when you are responsible for kids and their upbringing and their best interests and their highest good, it adds a whole nother layer. So I just want to give permission to parents out there, to moms out there. Like, it's okay if you need the extra tools, if the extra space, if you're not in your highest self and magnetic self all the time, don't worry, it will come back. Keep coming back to self as much as you can and give yourself grace. Such a huge part of navigating the rock bottom is getting into that grace as you're going through it.
Yeah, and she made a repair, so she showed her humanity and then made a repair.
And then felt guilty in bed the whole time before going to sleep. And Teddy's like, it's okay, Mama. Every time I talk to her, it's good to feel your feelings.
Oh,
saying all this shit we've been teaching her. I get upset too sometimes. It's all that. I was like, oh my God. And I'm just sitting there being like, I'm the worst parent in the world,
Yeah.
But
it happens literally happens to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the repair.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am really excited for you guys to see this energetic update, this channeling with Lacy, and our whole intention behind having this in. We've been having a ping on the team for a while. We're like, the community needs more guidance. Like, how do we energetically tap into what they're going through, give them very tangible tools? Obviously, you can use any of the nervous system regulating tools in the pathway right now. Any journaling stuff that is helpful to you, definitely go through the authenticity challenge if you haven't yet already. But check out next Wednesday, this channeling with Lacy, where she's really going to break down thematically what's going to come up. It kind of gives you this okay, I'm not in this alone. This isn't just happening to me. I'm not being punished. There are just things that we're having to move through collectively, individually, all of these things. And how can we do so from a place of empowerment? How can we do so with all of the tools that we need to support us along the way? And we're going to release a new deep imagining alongside of it. So we really want to hold your hand this year in the membership, on the podcast, everything. We're navigating it all alongside with you guys. And we just know this work so well after so many years that there is so much power and potential and rebirth on the other side of so many challenges too.
Yeah, and once one can understand that, there's a lot of excitement. But that's after everything we've talked about in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lacy, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out The Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you can check out our free mini workshop to find out why you're not manifesting and listen to one of our proprietary deep imagining audios, where it's going to help you drop into your theta state and overwrite low self-worth limiting beliefs. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.